Good evening, everyone. Please check whether audio and video is clear. Okay. Please specify whether audio and video is clear. So far we have discussed the topic of BRICS. We have discussed the topic of WTO. We have discussed the topic of climate finance. Today we are going to start another topic, that is weaponization of trade. So if you have any doubt from any of the previous topic, please ask. Also, one more thing, if you face any problem in understanding any specific term, please ask then and there so that I can clarify it in a simple way. Okay, shall we start? Okay, I am assuming that there is no doubt. So weaponization of trade. Weaponization basically means trade is being used as a weapon. Weapon basically means to control any particular country or to impose limitation on that country. Trade is being used as a weapon. Why this term was in use? Because of the statement by our External Affairs Minister, Mr. S. Jaishankar. So I'm just highlighting the statement. Trade is not just a globalized, but now weaponized. This was the statement by our External Affairs Minister. So we will try to understand what is weaponization of trade, what are its dimensions, what are its consequences, and then we will also discuss one mains question. Okay. So first thing first, weaponization of trade. That will be your basic introduction or definition. In a very simple sense, weaponization of trade means trade is being used as a weapon. Now, what does that mean? That simply means trade is being used as an instrument of foreign policy. That means as a tool to control other countries. So that is an instrument of foreign policy. So that is weaponization of trade. Now let's try to understand why this weaponization is so significant. If you remember, soon after election, US President Donald Trump announced that if BRICS countries will focus on common BRICS currency, he will impose 100% tariff on them. This is nothing but an instrument of weaponization. That simply means he threatened the countries that if you are going to do this, sanctions will be or tariff will be imposed. That is another example of weaponization of trade. Apart from that, soon after Russia-Ukraine conflict, various countries such as US, such as European countries, they had imposed sanctions on Russia. Similarly, Russia countered them. So that is another example of weaponization of trade. So let's try to understand what are the key aspects of weaponization of trade. Key aspects of weaponization of trade. Again, we will focus on the terms so that you can use those terms if there is a question in mains. See, the goal should be crystal clear. You just need collection of terms to write a mains answer. All you have to do is, for a 38 marker question, you just have to write 380 to 400 words. Usually follow the rule of 10. That is, if question is 38 marker, try to write at least 380 to 450 words or 400 words. For that, you just need a collection of 10 to 12 terms and you will be able to write the answer. Okay, so in simple sense, first aspect is protectionism. Protectionism. Now, what is protectionism? Protectionism is just opposite of globalization. What was globalization? Globalization basically means integration of economy with the rest of the world. On the other hand, protectionism basically means to protect our own economy, we will impose restrictions. For example, the recent election of USA has shown the preference for the protectionism. What is the main agenda of Trump? America first. That is nothing but protectionism. So protectionism is just opposite of globalization. And whenever there will be protectionism, the country will try to impose restrictions. This is a way of imposing certain restrictions, and therefore it is nothing but weaponization of trade. Ambuj, we will discuss non-academic issues after the end of this class. Hai na? As of now, please stick to the topic. Okay, another example, tariff. And non-tariff barriers. For example, US said that we will impose 100% tariff on BRICS countries if they will focus on new currency. What are non-tariff barrier? If you remember, in a WTO topic, we have discussed the concept of SPS. What is SPS? Sanitary and phytosanitary measures. That means on hygiene grounds, developed countries impose restrictions on the product. That is nothing but a way to impose restrictions. Okay. Apart from that, there are sanctions. Again, sanction is a restriction. For example, USA imposed sanctions on countries such as Russia, such as Iran, and such as North Korea through CAATSA, countering American adversaries through Sanctions Act. So just remember this act, CAATSA. CAATSA is a way through which US imposed sanctions on these countries. For example, countries like Russia, countries like Iran, and countries like North Korea. So it is not that only US impose these restrictions. Another country also do so. For example, China recently announced that they will discontinue the supply of critical minerals to China. Critical minerals. Sorry, China announced this discontinuation of supply of critical minerals to USA. Let me write it properly. China announced that they will not supply critical minerals or essential minerals such as germanium, antimony to USA. That is another way of weaponization of trade. Apart from that, currency manipulation is also a weaponization of trade. What is currency manipulation? Certain countries such as China deliberately devalue their currency. Now, currency devaluation means the value of the currency is low. Therefore, the exports will be cheaper, and that's why Chinese products are well known in the international market, not because of their quality but because of their price. So, currency manipulation is another aspect of this weaponization of trade. Currency manipulation. So these are some of the important dimensions of weaponization of trade. I'm assuming that so far there is no doubt. If you have any doubt, please ask. I will wait for 1 minute. If you have any doubt, please ask. Okay, again, there is no doubt. Okay, then let's continue. Now we have understood what is weaponization of trade, how it is being done. Now let's try to understand what are the consequences or implication or ramification of this weaponization of trade. So implication of weaponization of trade. Now try to understand it in a very simple way. If USA is going to impose any kind of restriction on China, what China will do or what any other country will do, they will retaliate. Retaliate means they will counterattack, and this may lead to trade war. That means one country will impose a restriction, another country will impose restriction in response to previous action. So that is the first implication of this, that is a trade war between countries. A classic example is US China. Another implication is disruption of supply chain. For example, if any country will impose any restriction on the essential supply, that will disrupt the supply chain. Very basic example is in 1973, the Middle East countries or West Asian countries had imposed restrictions on USA because of its support to Israel. So that disrupted the economy. Another example, recently because of COVID, the supply chain was disrupted and even Indian economy faced problems because we were not able to continue our imports from China. Okay. Then apart from that, if our supply chain will be disrupted, it will lead to loss of jobs, it will lead to slow economic growth. So I'm just continuing it here. Loss of jobs, slow economic growth. Okay, apart from that, what can happen? See, if there will be any kind of restriction, it will adversely impact the growth. For example, India and Iran are working on infrastructure project named as Chahabar Port project. But the progress on this project has been very slow, and one of the biggest reason is sanctions which are imposed by USA on Iran. So this has delayed the infrastructure development in that particular area. So it will have adverse impact on infrastructure delay. For example, Iran Chahbar port. So the progress on this port has been quite slow because of the sanctions on Iran. Now, why USA had imposed sanctions on Iran? The apprehension was that Iran is working on a nuclear weapon, and that's why USA had imposed sanctions on it. Okay, apart from that, it may lead to energy crisis. For example, soon after Russia-Ukraine conflict, sanctions were imposed on Russia. Subsequently, the energy import or gas import from Russia was reduced. Now, Germany is the biggest victim of this thing. Why so? Because Germany used to import significant gas from Russia. Soon after this restriction, the gas prices in Germany increased tremendously, and that's why German economy is going through a crisis. One of the leading reason for that crisis is this increment is the in the energy price, so that may lead to energy crisis also. Apart from that, it will also lead to various other issues. For example, soon after Russia Ukraine conflict, the food supply was disrupted, so it may also impact the food security or adverse impact on food security. Okay, so these are some of the points which you can mention in your answer. Hmm. In fact, if you understand, the Iranian economy is going through a crisis. Iranian economy, that is economy of Iran, is going through a crisis, and the one of the biggest reason for that is the sanctions. So it may even lead to collapse of economy. Collapse of economy. So far, we have discussed three things: what is weaponization of trade, what are the dimensions, and what are its implications. Now, let's try to understand what are the steps which has been taken to counter this weaponization of trade. So, steps taken. Again, we will discuss the key initiative. For example, to reduce dependency on the dollar, India is working on internationalization of rupee. That simply means use of rupee in the international transactions, more and more use of rupee in international transactions. So one step is internationalization of rupee. Apart from that, to ensure supply chain, various initiatives has been taken. For example, first is supply chain resilient initiative. In a very simple sense, the objective of this initiative is to reduce dependency on China and to diversify our supply chain. That means to diversify our sources. Apart from that, recently India joined Mineral Security Partnership. Mineral Security Partnership. Mineral Security Partnership basically means to ensure that we get the mineral resources from other countries. We have joined this association. Apart from that, countries are also working on China plus one model. China plus one model. What is this China plus one model? China plus one basically means, yes, majority of the manufacturing bases are in China because of the lower production cost. But now China, too much dependency on China is not good. So what companies are doing, they are setting up one more manufacturing base. Let's say Apple has set up manufacturing base in India. So they will continue with China, but now they will set up one more base in other country so that they are not totally dependent on China. That is China plus one. Apart from that, what India is doing, for example, India has announced various initiatives such as Make in India, such as PLI. What is PLI? Production linked incentive, such as ABA. What is ABA? Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. These are some of the initiatives taken by India. Okay, so you can specify that these are the initiatives taken to address the problem of weaponization of trade. Apart from that, there are various trade agreements So that is something which you can quote. Now let's try to understand how you are going to write conclusion for this and how you are going to approach the question. So let's see the question. So as a homework, you have three questions, but again, the answer can be framed from the content which we have discussed. So the first question is, examine how protectionist policies affect global trade and their implication for the emerging economies. That's first question. Second question, the global economic order is witnessing a power shift due to increasing unilateralism in the trade policies. Unilateralism basically means one sided decisions are taken in the trade policy. For example, US said we will impose tariff. That is one sided decision. So that is referred as unilateralism. Discuss. Third question is, the increasing weaponization of trade by powerful nation is reshaping global geopolitics. Discuss the implications of trade weaponization for developing country and suggest measures to mitigate the impact. Mitigate basically means to reduce the impact of this weaponization of trade. So try to write down these three questions. Again, no need to write a full-fledged answer. Just frame a structure of the answer, that this is going to be my introduction. Very basic introduction can be, what is weaponization of trade? In a very simple sense, using trade as a weapon. And then you are going to frame body and conclusion part. One more thing, as of now, I am giving you certain terms for writing conclusion. As of now, with more and more topics, you will have more and more terms. One term is SDG, that is sustainable development goal. For example, even in SDG there is a sustainable development goal, partnership for the global goals, है ना? So that is something which you can specify. Apart from that, whenever there is a issue related to trade, you will always discuss the WTO reforms. Apart from that, you can also quote the role of global south. You can also quote the concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. As of now, these are the terms which you can use. With more and more topics, I will provide you more terms. Right now, I just don't want to bombard you with a lot of terms. So just use them and try to write your conclusion. That's all for this topic. If you have any doubt, please ask. Aryan, as of now, I am not in city, so classes will resume once I'm back. Aryan and Ambuj. Okay, is there any other doubt? Please ask. Okay, then I am assuming there is no doubt. Thank you, and that's all for the day.